The Birdie Board podcast is brought to you by the Birdie Board app, the easiest way to track matches, scores, and handicaps with friends. Now, here's your host, Corey, with another episode of the Birdie Board podcast.
Welcome to the Birdie Board podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Jones, a PGA teaching professional with more than 40 years of experience helping golfers improve their game. Jeff began playing in the early 70s, learning by watching others long before instruction was widely available. When he started teaching in the 80s, he quickly realized how opinionated golf could be and set to uncover real science-based answers rooted in physics, geometry, human movement, and motor learning. He's based in Orlando, Florida. Jeff describes himself as a swing builder, not a quick fix coach, which I love. He believes that small intentional changes in a player's approach can lead to big results, and he's passionate about helping golfers get the highest return on their time spent in the game. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is just how can we maximize the return on our time spent practicing golf. So that's Jeff. Jeff, welcome. The first thing that kind of stuck out to me when you and I first talked on the phone is actually not even related to this, but I just love the story, is the mattress and the carpet like home setup you had in the basement as a kid. I'd love for you to just kind of tell or talk about that and tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really had no interest in playing golf. I would ride my bike by a golf course when I was like
Mm-hmm.
11 or 12 years old. The only thing I saw was old men wearing funky looking pants. And I thought, this
Yeah,
is not for
exactly.
me. By the time I
Uh,
turned 13, I did realize one thing, that I was smaller than other kids.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so my baseball, my basketball, my football, all were going away. So I was a kid kind of looking for a sport. I love
Mm-hmm.
sports. I had a lot of energy. I ended up at a golf course once, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is great!" But I lived in Western Colorado, so once the first season ended, the snow came,
Yep.
and I was kind of depressed, because I really didn't
Mm-hmm.
have anything to do that was golf related. And so then once the snow came back, off the ground, it was like I was really upset, because then it was like, oh my gosh, it was like two steps forward, three steps back.
Right.
And so I thought to myself, as I was playing to that year, when I was getting closer to the winter time, I thought, you know what, I need to keep making reps.
Yep.
Like I love to make repetitions, and
Right.
but there was no such thing as an indoor net or anything there. We're talking 1973, like I'm
Mm.
old, and so I got this idea. My parents had a basement, and I thought, what if I found something to hit off of and hit into where I couldn't,
Mm.
I could kill myself. So I
Yeah.
dumpster dived into a carpet store place. I found some carpet scraps, and I thought, okay, when you could swing on that, and you could make contact with the ground, it wasn't going to bang
Right.
you. And then I said, okay, well, what about an old mattress? So I went and same thing, went behind the mattress store, found an old one in there, and all of a sudden I had my own indoor range. And I made sure of not telling any of my friends that I was making reps and ripping balls into a
Right.
mattress that would, that bounce around this room. But I did know one thing. Once the snow came off, that I was making a lot more money.
Yeah.
Uh, because all of a sudden, my swing was a whole lot more advanced. It
Right.
wasn't that. It wasn't that always that fallback time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So how did you even come up with like the idea to look for scrap carpet or old mattress? Did you think that was just going to be enough?
Yeah, well, I made swings. I made swings on a concrete floor.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
was
nice.
sparks were flying off the bottom, and the bottom of
Uh-huh.
the club, the sole was all scraped up. And then I knew if I hit it
Nice.
into that wall, I'd probably get killed. So I just
Uh,
put one and one together and came up with two, and it worked out. It worked out pretty well. I mean,
yeah.
even to the point when I got to college. When I got to college, in there, the first semester they did not. They didn't give me a roommate. It was supposed to be
Hmm.
a two by. You're supposed to be with
Right.
two. So I took what was supposed to be the other guy's thing. I took his mattress off. I put it on the
Did it
window.
again?
Yeah, yeah, I did it again, but I did get warned by the RA about. They
Oh,
said, "Hey,
nice.
somebody's complaining about there's thump, thump," and that. I was like, "Oh, I have no idea what that is." So.
So how did you know if you had a good swing or not? Is it just from the feeling you just know what a good swing felt
I
like?
think, well, I think we all know, okay, if we hit something solidly, you can tell if it's struck solidly off the face or not.
Yep.
Obviously, we want to see the ball flight. We need the ball
Hmm.
flight, okay? But to some extent, I was focusing more on the movement pattern rather than what I saw.
Yeah.
Golfers were very we react to what we see. We look up and we see something we like. We make this assumption like, oh my gosh, that was like my move, my best move, and we see
Right.
something we don't like, right? And so it really wasn't a good learning thing. So I focused more on just, how did I interact with the club coming to the
Hmm.
ground? I could tell,
Hmm.
okay, was it, I mean, obviously on the, you're topping, chunking, whatever, was the
Right.
club coming down too early or
Yeah.
whatever. So it just became more of a feel thing. Obviously, once I got outside, I was like, okay, I know what it feels like now. I just
Hmm.
got to see where it's going and I'll make an adjustment.
Yeah. How hard do you think it was to go from swinging in a basement or just going off a feel for how long was it? Like 2 months or 3 months during the
Oh
winter?
no, it took a whole lot less time than
Really?
that because
Yeah.
I mean one of the things that I always try to tell people is if you take a golf club and you just hold it up hold up sideways right there and you find the
Hmm.
balance point, what you have is like an unbalanced lever, right? If you find the balance
Right.
point on an iron, say you might have 5.5 inches on one side and 35 on the other, okay?
Hmm.
And so it's this relationship of holding on to a light thing and trying to control a heavy thing, and
Hmm.
that's one of the biggest things, certainly better players have learned not to react to the heavy side.
Right.
Newer players are people that struggle. They react totally to the heavy side. And
Yeah.
so just the daily putting the club in my hand and making the swings in there, maybe make that connection between, those two. How do you control the heavy side through controlling the light side?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you emphasized just some of what we were going to talk about today with maximizing the return on the time spent. I guess we can talk about like what does that phrase mean to you?
Um, well, I'll preface it like this,
Hmm.
we all work hard, we put our money in, we give it over to some financial advisor, and then at the end of
Hmm.
the year, end of the quarter, everybody's looking and comparing and going, oh, well, yeah, hey, my guy got me this, my guy got
Yep.
me that, right? And so I've always been one, I've spent the last 4 decades of my life, on a
Hmm.
practice facility. So that is my office per
Yeah.
se. And so I've
Right.
had the unique opportunity to watch people in their pursuit of getting better. And so I see them wasting a massive amount of time on the practice facility,
Hmm.
because for me, I'm a bottom line guy. It's all about
Hmm.
the score, right?
Right.
Okay. I was fortunate that when I grew up, everybody, there was only like 3 or 4 kids that played there. And
Hmm.
so I said, hey, we need to ask the men if we can join their group. The men said,
Hmm.
sure, you can join, young men. Okay, but
Hmm.
we gamble. And I said, well, how does that work? And they
Yeah.
said, well, we play for a couple bucks on the front and the back. And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, I grew up fairly poor. I
Right.
thought, wow, this is
Wow, what an
amazing. You could,
opportunity, right?
yeah, yeah, you could make money playing golf. I was
Yeah.
extremely attracted to that concept
Uh-huh.
in there. So, so being score driven, that means that every time I would go to the practice facility, it was all about how could I shave off strokes? Where could I
Hmm.
shave off strokes?
Hmm.
What could I go do, to do that? And so, once I started teaching, that was one of the things that I really focused on. I was try to teach people, okay, when you go to practice, right? Because it's a
Hmm.
limited, time is a commodity,
It
right?
is.
And when you're younger, I mean, I teach a lot of junior golfers, and I always tell them,
Hmm.
hey, here's the great thing: you don't have a job, you don't have a wife, you don't
Yeah,
have a
right.
mortgage, okay? So you better be living over there. But for my
Hmm.
other clients, they're like, okay, I'm running a business, I got a wife, I got three
Hmm.
kids, I don't have a ton of time.
Hmm.
I might only get to, okay. And so they were like, okay, well, how can I maximize that time? And my
Hmm.
first my first thing was that, I would get these things where people would go, hey, I only got 1 hour a week to practice. And I say,
Right.
okay, cool. So I said, okay, so let me give you a 1 hour practice plan. And
Hmm.
so I said, look, I said, look, if I take 60 minutes for 1 hour and I
Hmm.
divide it by 7 days, it's basically 8.5 minutes a day. So I said,
Right.
I'm going to give you 8.5 minutes a day, every day of something to work on.
Hmm.
And the guy looked at me and he's like, every day? And I said, well, I didn't stutter. You
Yeah.
told me you had an hour. So
Right.
let's
You're just
allocate
spreading it out. Right.
yeah, yeah. So let's allocate it 8.5 minutes a day. So, that's one of the major hacks that I found
Hmm.
is that if you just pick the club up and you work with it for eight
So
and a half minutes a day.
do you think it's better for someone to always do a little bit of something every single day rather than something once a week or once every 2 weeks?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
more you get the club in the hand, the more it feels like you were born with it, right? You
Yeah.
you have this interaction, like your grip becomes better, your face angle control comes better, your understanding
Hmm.
of where the bottom of your arc is, how to compress it, everything feels better. I look at human body as we are our club's tool, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, where do you get your source of speed from? Your body. Where do you get your source
Hmm.
of control from? Your body. So every time I can make my body replicate a pattern, the golf
Hmm.
swing pattern, or anytime I can get a club in my hand, that's great. Okay.
Hmm.
And I actually found that, when you remove the ball, okay, then it's actually really a great learning experience. Like I really, newer players, I try to tell them maybe 5 or 6 reps without a ball to
Hmm.
one with.
Hmm.
Okay, because otherwise, if we just give, what's the natural inclination of golfers, right? You get a bucket of balls, you
Yeah.
sit there and
And
whack
you
them, and it's
just,
just this emotional roller coaster of, I love
exactly.
golf, I hate golf.
Yep.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
So, but that really does leads to no learning.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about like how you approach it some with your students. The one example of spreading out the 60 minutes over a week. Like, what are some other approaches you take when you're trying to get a golfer to understand just maximizing their time? I think it's really important too because we're going into the winter. So a lot of golfers, like your Colorado story, we're eyeing the end of a golf season. Most of the northern United States is already there. To some capacity, other than a few brave people. So, like, how can we start? How, if I was like your student, how would you tell me to start maximizing my time?
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Well, I mean, one, start to study.
Hmm.
Okay. Start to study. Like I have I'm a big thing. I mean, 2025, there's really no excuse to not be able to be a much smarter golfer and understanding swing mechanics, right? I mean,
Right.
when I started in 1973, information was king. There really was no information. When I started
Yeah.
teaching in 83, there was limited information. If you had a Ben Hogan's Five Easy Lesson book, you thought, oh, wow, I'm like way ahead of the curve right now.
Right.
Information is cheap, right? The
Yes.
problem, the problem is that the information is fragmented. You can
Hmm.
scroll to your blue in the face and find stuff in there, right? But what you have to do is you have to really get a more functional understanding.
Hmm.
So off season time is get an understanding of the swing mechanics of how the
Hmm.
swing really works. Okay,
Hmm.
and at that point in time, you should start to transition into going, okay, I need to start learning. With repetitions, with segmented. I
Hmm.
always tell people, I go, if you watch a football team before, I mean, it's football season now, right? So
Hmm. Yeah.
before they're doing in practice, they're doing a walkthrough. And I'm like going,
Right.
wait, these are the best athletes in the world walking through a play. And I go,
Yeah.
well, why was that? Because you have to learn the movement at a slow speed before you can ramp up the speed and then do it under duress.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
golfers want to skip that step. So, if you're stuck at the house in the winter, one,
Hmm.
study, get smarter on the swing mechanics.
Hmm.
Two, start working on grooving your swing in step by step, position by position, start to try to understand, what is swing plane? How do I use my trail arm and wrist? How do I get into position for release?
Yeah.
All these integral things. The whole golf swing is only 1.2 seconds. So,
Yeah.
it's also another great time to, besides hitting balls in my basement, it was the time that I actually went to the gym. Now I worked out then. I didn't know what to work out. And now
Hmm.
there's so much golf specific workout stuff available for us out there
Yeah. Do you
where
have
you
some
can start
favorite exercises or anything that come to mind?
rotational based,
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, the golf swing is a big interaction between your upper spine and your lower spine, right? So anything where you can segment those two, where you can,
Hmm.
your upper rib cage is in one section, your lower hips and pelvis are in another, right? So
Hmm.
where you can separate out your spine is good, wrist control is good.
Yeah. I
So
think
there's a
people
lot of things
frequently
there.
forget about their wrists.
Yeah, if you are your club's machine, which is the
Yep.
premise I take, okay. I always tell people, I go, hey, you can pimp out a Hyundai, but how
Uh-huh.
fast is it gonna go? Right?
Right, right.
Because what I try to sell is, a golf course's main defense is yardage, right? Par threes are
Hmm.
short, par fours are middle, par fives are long.
Hmm.
So when I started, it was all hit the ball in the fairway. Well, that model has completely you flipped on its side. Now it's how far can you hit it, right?
Yes.
And so if you can start to cover 65, 70% of the golf hole off the tee, right? So what would I be working on in there? I'd be working on making my body more functionally capable of moving. I'd get smarter. I would understand that. I would start working on the pattern, to get it grooved in. And then,
Hmm.
now once the snow comes off, okay, then boom, now you're ready to start, getting some ball flight behind it. And then, but you're ready to make adjustments at that
Right,
point.
right, right. So people are I think people are going to start buying into just maximizing their time. My favorite thing you've said so far is just like spreading that hour out throughout the week. I can see that like golf is such a repetition sport and it benefits from doing a little something every day versus just one thing once a week. But with that being said, they still need to maximize, even if it is 8 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. What are some of like the common time wasters you could see someone doing?
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. I mean, so let's look at stats. If we come from a bottom line position where we say it's all about your score, your score, your score.
Hmm.
Okay. There are three clubs, okay, that are going to encompass 80% of your strokes. Okay.
Hmm.
Obviously, your putter is going to be 42%. Your wedges, okay, we'll say wedges. Back in the day, I literally grew up with one wedge.
Uh,
Now I have three and I have clients that have four, but okay, we'll
right.
just put wedge, we'll put wedges as a club, okay? And then your driver, okay?
Hmm.
And that's 80% of the game. So, anybody listening would be hard pressed to say, hey, when did you ever not score well when you were
Hmm.
crushing your driver and then you took advantage of all the wedge shots, okay?
Right.
You missed screens, you got up and down a high percentage of time. The par fives, you got yourself, 40 yards away, and you're
Hmm.
able to stick it in there close, okay,
Hmm.
and convert the putt. So those are the three. So when I see people over there, hitting 7 irons to the same target for a whole bucket, I'm thinking to myself, why?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
because
not
it
going to
just
it's
doesn't
not going to
happen as
it's
much.
not it's not going to translate on your scorecard.
Yeah.
And so that's what for me, maximizing your time spent would be, it starts with, okay, if you're at the range, use those big three, which of course, putting is another thing that, obviously you can do inside.
Yeah.
Start working
Right.
on your stroke, you can get I was just one that always was like, if you have a club in your hand and you're working with it, you're going to get better.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. And I think too a lot with just the working out side of things. It's the same idea with working out. Like if you work out once a week for an hour, you're never going to progress. But if you work out 10 minutes every single day, you're actually going to see some gains. And 10 minutes is nothing to work out. And it sounds like the same was with your golf swing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's such I've been teaching for like maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years. All of a sudden I was at a traffic light one day and I was like, wow, how do humans learn motor skills? And it just
Yeah.
popped into my head,
Yeah.
of like, wait, I'm teaching golf here. I'm trying to do there. And so I started to study that, how do humans learn motor skills? Because golf is a
Hmm.
motor skill, right? And it goes through this three-step process of cognitive, associative, autonomous is this three-step thing. So cognitive, do you understand what you're supposed to do? That's why I
Hmm.
said, hey, you should
The
study,
studying. Yeah.
you should study and you should take the time to learn the swing more in depth rather than just
Right.
jump out there. And that's why I hate the quick tip mentality that my industry wants to sell people is like, oh, only 10 swings and you're going to get better. And I'm like, oh yeah, only yeah, 10 reps and I'll have an 8 pack. No, it's
Yeah,
not going to
right.
work.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going
Yeah.
to take
So,
some time and effort. And I
yeah.
think a big thing, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, teaching a lot of junior golfers is the patience isn't quite there anymore. It takes time to be a good golfer. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of repetition, and people want the quick fixes, and it's even worse in the younger generations.
Yeah, you 100% correct. But even if you were listening to this thing in your, your mid 30s,
Right.
if you think about it and you go, well, I'm going to be playing golf for 40 years. What if you just
Hmm.
said instead of a quick fix mentality, what if I just took one season, one
Yep.
year? And that's the sell point that I'm always making is that this is such a great activity for long term. And I always say this thing is kind of a bit of a play on words, but if you learn slowly, you'll progress fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
And
love
and,
that.
and
I love
so
that.
so that's kind of the way I'm wired and try to
Hmm.
teach people.
So, kind of starting to transition a little bit to the close of this awesome podcast. So one of the things you talked to me a ton already about prior to this podcast is just the importance of posting your score. Why do you think that's such an important thing for your students?
Wow, that's one that's dear to my heart, and that's why when I first met you and when you talked to me about the birdie board, I was like, okay, I like this guy, okay,
Hmm.
because posting scores is how we're measured. When I
Hmm.
when I find people and I go, hey, what kind of scores do you shoot? If they say, well, I only played for fun, then what they're really saying is, I'm embarrassed about my score. I have yet to meet
Right.
one. person. And, I mean, I've
Yeah.
been playing for 52 years and teaching professionally for 42 of it. Okay. I've never met anybody who was proud of their score who wouldn't tell you. If you go, hey,
Exactly.
how'd you play today, Corey? And you go, I had 78. You go,
Yeah.
that's wonderful, man. That's great. And
Yeah.
so when you post your score, you become accountable.
Hmm.
Okay. And when you
Hmm.
become accountable, you start to practice differently. You start to think differently. You start to act differently. If you're just saying, well, I'm just going to go out there and clear the air in my mind and, work and get away from all that stuff, that's one thing, but I'm a big fan of, like I said, of when you post the scores, you're accountable. And that was why, when I saw the birdie board, I thought, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, this is so great here because what happens is you're getting a group of people together, okay? And you're
Right.
saying, hey, we're going to post a score. We're going to have a game. We're going to have
Yep.
action, and I grew up with action. Like I
Yeah.
said,
Put a
the
couple
men would
dollars
not.
on it and have some fun. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It doesn't have to be a big bet. It doesn't have to be
No,
big
it doesn't.
action, but
No.
it really should count, right? And so,
Yes.
if you're not posting scores and you're saying it doesn't count, if you're not using, the birdie board to help facilitate,
Yep.
you and some other people in there. And I really love like the live scoring. Like
Yeah.
I would have
Oh,
done
it's so much fun. It's so
anything
much
to
fun.
see. Yeah, because you go out there and you bet with, you got 20
Yeah.
guys out there and you make all these bets out there.
Eh,
And then you kind of have this theme like, oh my gosh, I wonder how they're playing,
Yep.
and
Exactly.
it does
Hmm.
change a bit of your mentality of like, if
Your
you have to,
strategy.
yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, if you're up two or three, I'm aiming to the center of the green. I'm not taking chances. If I
Yeah.
look on the app and I go, okay, I'm down by one. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to.
Yeah. You're gonna play a
I'm
little more aggressive.
100%. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think posting scores, the birdie board, I think it's just a good
Yeah.
marriage. They work
I
together.
love it. Yeah. So, what is one piece of advice? So, I know I loved the philosophy of like, there's not going to be a one quick fix, but let's say if you were saying, okay, commit to something this winter a little bit every day, what's one of the best pieces of advice you might give someone?
Yeah, I mean, wow, living in Florida, we don't have
I know, yeah.
we
Yeah, you
we
get the
don't have
luxury down there.
yeah, we don't have winters. We don't take times off, okay?
Hmm.
Again, I would say to get yourself organized,
Hmm.
okay? To get
Hmm.
yourself a plan. It's we all, what's the old saying, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan, right?
Hmm.
I mean, we all know
It's
that
a great saying, yeah.
from business and work in there, okay? And so a lot of times people just take golf haphazardly, So if you're looking over the winter and you say, okay, well, how do I want to approach 2026 season, okay?
Hmm.
One, use technology, okay?
Right.
So like I have an app that all my students are on. It's called Coach Now,
Hmm.
okay? Where all
Hmm.
their instruction, they can videotape out of it. So why you can videotape out of my phone where you can't slow it up, you can't draw lines,
Right.
you can't compare
Yep.
side to side, you can't look at how you were swinging last week compared to this week.
Hmm.
So Coach Now is an app that, I give to my
It's
students for
so
free.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And,
use a
and
similar one you might have heard of on form.
yeah,
It's
sure. On
the
form
same sort
V1.
of
Yeah.
idea. But yeah,
100,
the whole thing, you just need something to help you watch your swing and see that progression.
yeah, 100%. I'm a massive fan of high-speed video analysis. So
Hmm.
I would say, one, do that. Okay. Two, if you happen to have an indoor space where you can hit into a net right there, okay, a portable launch monitor,
Hmm. Hmm.
a flight scope Mevo, a Rapsodo,
Hmm.
okay, maybe a couple, two to $300 investment right there. And then now
Hmm.
you can start to say, okay, well, what's my ball speed?
Yep.
What's my
You get some
smash factor? What are my
numbers.
spin rates back? Okay. And that's all feedback, right? So,
Right.
get yourself organized with the tools, okay? And try to get your body ready and study.
Hmm.
And then, hit the ground running.
Yeah. I love it. So, okay, I think the listeners are going to want to hear more from you. Where can they find you? I know I found you on YouTube, but I would love to just give you an opportunity to give a little plug for yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm not much of a plugger. You can tell by the by by
Uh,
the by the readers and the gray hair and the
uh,
admission that I've been doing it for 42 years. I'm an old school guy. But yeah, I do have a YouTube, Jeff Jones Golf.
Mhm.
.com on there, and I do a lot of, I do a lot of, developmental instruction. That's why I run a lot of junior golf programs. I want to run one of the largest at school, after school golf programs. And I have
Mhm.
a company called Right Start Golf, which is really designed to help kids get off to a good start. And a lot of times, people will go to me and they go, well, oh, do you teach adults? And I go, well, I teach anybody. It's just,
Yep.
I'm one of those ground up sort of,
Right.
people that, if you're stuck at a 17, you actually, for example, if you're stuck at a 17 handicap, you really have to step back and go, okay, I don't have the core base of fundamentals that allow me to go to a single digit
Progress more.
handicap, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, you can find, my stuff is pretty boring. It's all physics, it's all physics, geometry, and how do we learn? I don't sell any quick fix stuff on there. I
Good.
won't promise you 10 swings to
Good.
to a better.
That's what the listeners want to hear. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
And then I would tell you to get a birdie board and start playing for stuff that matters
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
get yourself
It makes it
on the
fun
app.
too.
And
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, yeah, start, nothing better than, harassing your friends from work or in the neighborhood and saying, hey, let's have a game.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Jeff, I really appreciate you joining on this week of the Birdie Board podcast. You are the first guest I've ever had on the show. So
Oh,
you said
wow.
it was
Oh,
a
wow.
first for you, but it was also a first for me. I'm usually doing this by myself, so I think the listeners are gonna be pleased to just hear more than just me talking. So thank you for
Awesome.
joining.
Oh,
And then I'm just gonna go ahead and close this out. So to everyone listening, thank you for listening. And that's it for this episode of the Birdie Board podcast.
awesome. See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Birdie Board podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and share it with a friend who loves golf as much as you do. And before your next round, grab the Birdie Board app, free on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, and let it handle the scoring while you enjoy the game.